Hi, it's Steve Hargadon, and welcome to, we're getting to the end of the second day of the Global Education Conference, day 2 of our 5-day conference with over 400 sessions. And this is a special keynote with Chor Huat Chua. Welcome.
Welcome. Thanks.
Very glad to have you here. Thanks to our sponsors this year for the Global Education Conference. We really appreciate the tremendous support and the great enthusiasm of everyone who's participating, especially our volunteers. This is a chance for you to indicate where you're participating from. Look for the star to the left of the map, double click on that, and click on the map. And feel free to put a shout out in the chat as well. As you continue to put those notes in the chat, we're going to move forward. Thank you for being here. We will have people coming in from the previous sessions. Please do welcome them in the chat. If you're listening to the recording, thank you so much for doing so. And I will turn the time over to you. Thank you.
Hi, good day to everyone here, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Chua Chor Huat, and I'm currently the principal of the School of Science and Technology Singapore, or SST in short. I would first like to thank you for taking time to join me for this webinar. I must say that it is a rather refreshing way to connect with fellow educators from around the world. And I thank the organizers of the 2012 Global Education Conference for giving me the opportunity to do so. Today I would like to discuss how one could put in place an ecosystems for engaged teaching and learning. Depending on individual experience, the one in questions can really be referring to one nation, one town, one school district, or just one school. In most cases, we are lucky that it's not just a one-person's endeavors. For these discussions, I'll be keeping to the context of the learning environment afforded by my schools. And this is certainly a topic that's very close to my heart, as I have had the recent experience of setting up these schools with an ideology that is probably not very widely accepted, at least in this part of the world. As I go along, I certainly welcome your views and sharing of your own experiences. And let me start off with a bit of a brief background of the kind of operating context that we are in here. For an overview of the progression pathway of a child educated in Singapore, I would suggest the resources on our Education Ministry website, which is highlighted on the slides. And the link here would actually lead you to a brochure and an interactive sites so that you would have a better idea of the education landscapes in Singapore. And I would say that over the last 15 years, the Ministry of Education have actually been looking at ways to diversify the educational pathway to our view with different talents and abilities so that we can actually groom them and develop them differently. And I think recognizing that kids really comes with different talents and ability, we could not take a one-size-fits-all approach towards the development of the precious human resource that we have in Singapore. And that partly leads to the establishment of SST as one of the brand new specialized schools in Singapore. And really we want to look at ways whereby we can provide an all-round development for the kids, whereby we focus on a lot more on the use of technology. So in terms of grades and age group, SST actually catered to the learning needs of the secondary school segments. In the United States, this is probably equivalent to grade 7 to 10. In other words, we are looking at students ranging from age from 13 to 16. And prior to joining SST, they would have spent a good 6 years in the elementary schools. And in the Singapore context, we do have a national examinations at the end of the 6 years of primary education. And after studying in SST, which is the second school component, the kids would actually move on to pre-university institutions such as junior colleges or polytechnic before moving on to the university. So SST actually offers a 4-year program accumulating in these national qualifications whereby we call it the GCE O level program. And SST is actually set up as a very special schools. We call it a specialized independent schools. And let me explain a little bit more about the concept of independent schools in Singapore. Independent schools here does not mean that we are private schools. Independent schools in Singapore just means that we get a lot more resources coming from the government, and we have a lot more autonomy to run our program. In a way, it's a good combinations of both the public as well as the private sector partnership, whereby we can have the full autonomy of running our programs and activities and yet enjoy very strong support and funding coming from the government. And the word specialized actually refers to the focus that the schools is chartered to do. And in our case here, our focus area is obviously in the development of science and technology. And certainly there are a few other specialized independent schools in Singapore whereby we focus on developing the students' artistic talent, sporting talents, as well as other form of talents. And in these schools, we adopt a one-to-one learning program, basically one students to one laptop program, and we integrate this extensively within the learning environment. And we are also very fortunate that we are part of the Future School at Singapore program. This is actually a research program whereby the schools partner with our only teacher training institute in Singapore called the National Institute of Education to research into how technology could be used effectively to enhance the whole teaching and learning experience as well as achieve high standards of learning outcomes. And finally, over in Singapore, SST is very fortunate to have a very small class size. Our average class size is 23 as compared to the mainstream schools where our class size on average is about 35 to 40. And certainly I think a class size of 23 is not big, probably in the United States, but class size of about 23 is quite a fair achievement in Singapore, and there's really a very heavy investment with regards to the employment of teaching resources, teachers coming into this environment. So let me touch on our key topics of sharing. Really, we want to focus on creating the ecosystems for engaged learning. And I'm very fortunate to be part of this endeavors right from day one. And I think when the school was first announced, it was announced way back in March 2008. But we did not open the schools immediately. It took us about 1 year, 9 months to get into the preparation stage, to get all the necessary structures, processes, teachers, training, all in place before we start to enroll our first cohort of students in January 2010. And the academic year over in Singapore runs on a calendar year basis, and basically we run from January to November. That's our calendar, that's our year, that was our school year. And I think given the opportunity to be able to think and sit down and plan this whole endeavors with a team of very dedicated, committed educators, we look at what are some of the key pieces that we really want to put in place to make sure that this is a place that has a very new way of learning that will engage the 21st century learners. And we actually distill it down to 3 key components. Number 1, I think we need to get our philosophy right. Number 2, obviously we need to look at the detailed planning in terms of activities, the programs. And the third one, which is certainly the key, whereby we need to provide strong professional development support to our teachers so that they can bring out the kind of teaching philosophy, the kind of teaching activities, the kind of learning outcomes that we hope to achieve within our own classroom environment. And as far as the philosophy is concerned, I think we focus very much on 3 things: the learner, the learning experiences, as well as the learning outcomes. And I think certainly when we look at our students, of the current age, we know that our learners is, in terms of their profile, in terms of their learning habits, is changing quite drastically. And certainly technology has actually played a tremendous role in the development of the students, and more so even before they enter the formal school systems. And I would say that over the last 2 to 3 years, based on our interaction with our students, we certainly see that our students are students who really love to explore, love to express themselves, and certainly they do not like rote learning. They do not want to be just given information downloaded to them, or to be mugging just to pass examinations. And I think the key word here really is that the students really want to be engaged. And as educators, how best can we engage them, and how best can we engage them with useful learning activities that will actually scaffold their learning experiences, that will actually scaffold their skill sets so that they can actually achieve higher learning outcomes and better learning outcomes. And that's why I think after having a very close understanding about the kind of learner that we are receiving within our school systems, I think it's important for us to be paying a lot more attention to the learning processes, or in our case here, we refer them to as the learning experience. I think far too often, most of us as educators, we are very focused about the learning outcomes. In particular, I think we are very focused about the learning objective within a particular subject domain. For example, if I have a math teacher, I'll be very concerned about achieving a certain learning objective with regards to the mastery of certain maths concepts, mastery of certain mathematical skills. But I think when we enter the classrooms, we are really teaching the students, and we're not just teaching the subject. And I think it's important for us to structure our learning experiences that is meaningful, that could actually draw upon other forms of development, other forms of experiences that could actually strengthen the kids' 21st century competencies. And that is why in all our learning activity, we do try to see how best can we innovate, how best can we bring in the technology, how best can we make it more relevant, and how best could we I think there's some technical problem here. Okay. So I think down here, when we talk about the learning experiences, we really want to make sure that the whole process towards attaining the learning outcome is as enjoyable, as enriching, as engaging. And it's always say that the process is as important as the destination, and the process is as important as the outcome. And that is something that I think all our educators here really pay a lot more attention in designing our learning activities, in designing the learning tasks, in designing the whole entire experience that is coherent, that would actually make sense to the kids, that would also make sense to achieve the kind of objective that we want to put in place. So as far as SSC is concerned, when we talk about learning experiences, our focus here is really on this broad concepts of applied learning. And in SST, we have actually defined applied learning on 6 different fronts. We want to make sure that applied learning is active and relevant, is authentic, is community focused, is integrated, is learner-centered, as well as process-focused. It does not necessarily mean that in every single lessons we would be able to bring out these 6 facets within the lessons. But I think what we want to do really is across the whole curriculum, within the semesters, within the year, there will be key elements of this that will be highlighted through the various lessons, through the various experiences that the kids go through, so that collectively the whole learning experience or the whole learning process makes a lot more sense to the kids. There's a lot more relevance to what they can connect with, and to connect really between the academic learning as well as the real life applications of it. And on the slides you could actually see pictures of my students actually participating in the learning tasks, whereby they are actually involved in various subject disciplines here. And it involves history, it involves geography, as well as sciences. And really it's talking about the studying of the quality of the water in the river, the formations of commercial activities along the Singapore River and how things has evolved over the years. And there are really a lot of good learning outcomes that we could achieve through these little activities. And we can see that this is not something that we can achieve in a normal classroom environment where these teachers could just lectures or download information and work in silo, work within their own subject disciplines. Work within the subject disciplines to be able to just so-called download the kind of information and download the kind of learning objective to the students. And we really want to see students be able to integrate their learning so that they do not see things in isolation. And that's certainly how they should approach the real world subsequently when they move on to the workplace, whereby they need to tackle real world problems that's a lot more sophisticated, that's a lot more integrated, as well as a lot more complex. Okay, I think as far as the learning outcomes is concerned, as I mentioned earlier on, I think in this 21st century, our focus is really on the students in terms of their learning capability, in terms of their learning competencies. And I think it's the growth that we want to see in our students that is critical, that is important for us to guide us in our whole planning of our lesson activities. As a subject teachers, I think we sometimes focus too much on our subject discipline, on the very so-called micro level in terms of the objectives that we want to achieve within the topics, within the chapters. And I think it's important for us to see beyond that, that when we enter the classrooms, we are really educating the child, and we really need to bring about other kind of learning activities that can help us to promote certain learning outcomes that will strengthen, for example, their collaboration skills, that will strengthen their group work, project management skills, as well as trying to get them to be able to participate actively, to voice out their opinions, to give their comments, to be able to do research. So I think over here on the slides you can see that in SST we do really hope to achieve a very long list of learning outcomes, and these are not short-term goals that we can achieve in a short span of time. I think it's an ongoing long-term process that we need to continuously focus on, and I think that could only be achieved through all the little learning experiences that we put in place, through all the academic learning within the classrooms, through the performance tasks that we give to the students, through the kind of activity that we create even outside schools so that the students can actually participate fully. The next segment that I want to go into is really how then do we put this in place to look at the detailed planning and in terms of the program that we want to put in place. And over here under the program segment, we will be talking about three key elements here. One is the approaches, the implementations, the kind of tools and structures. And I think the last important component that we have is really focus on developing the talent of the students. And talent development is a big part in SST that actually helps us to drive as well as plan our program activities. As I mentioned earlier on, I talked about the applied learning, and in this context here, we are talking about applied learning, helping the students to connect the dots between academic concepts and real-world context for enduring understandings. Beyond the usual academic curriculum that the students need to undertake, such as language arts, math, their mother tongue languages, sciences, humanities subjects, we also integrate within the formal curriculum student exposure to information and communication technology. We also have dedicated lessons given to students on innovation and entrepreneurship. We also provide students with the opportunity to be involved in interdisciplinary and research studies. And these are all very useful curriculum organizers that can actually help us to build out the skill sets of the students in areas that we do not quite normally be able to achieve during the academic subjects. And really, I think these curriculum organizers help us to get the students to learn some of the fundamentals of ICT, adopt a spirit of innovations and entrepreneurial mindsets, and to be able to apply their concepts and knowledge in both the academic as well as the non-academic field. And for example, some of the interesting projects include lightning detection systems and a study into how traditional Chinese medicines extract can inhibit bacterial growth. And as we all know, we are really in the 21st century, and we really want our kids to acquire and to have a deep so-called skill sets, especially with regards to some of the 21st century competencies. And in SST, we have these 10 competencies that we strive towards, and that is all highlighted as the 10 C's: commitment, confidence, etc. And I think as far as the tools and structures are concerned, certainly we are dealing with a group of very savvy students, and they are very well connected, and certainly they are a very social learner. And I think the use of technology is inevitable, and we certainly want to integrate technology very well within the classroom environment that will make it very seamless for them to learn, so that they do not see technology as something that's different from their social life, that they are able to integrate their learning life as well as with their social life, and to be able to create useful tools and structures and platforms that can actually help them to learn better on their own, to become a more self-directed, to become a more independent learner. And certainly we know that technology can help us to go in a big way to do that. So actually with that focus in mind, we have actually embarked on a one-to-one ICT-enabled learning. And as far as the technology part is concerned, we think that there are really two big key pieces that we need to look at. One is obviously the people.
Sure. May I just interrupt you, please? I'm Anne from Australia. We have a very loud buzzing sound. Can you see anything at your end that might cause that buzzing
on this slide,
sound?
you can see that we have deliberately drawn a bar to highlight that technology.
Thank you. Do you have a headset? Do you have a headset?
Sure. Yes.
Oh, you are.
Yes.
Okay. No, not really. So it's all plugged in firmly, etc.
Sure.
How about
we'll try to fix the problem if we can.
Okay. How about everybody else? Is the buzzing better? I will switch off my microphone and see if it works.
Yeah,
we might have to interrupt again, because if you have a headset on, I don't know why it would be buzzing like this. And you've got a microphone on the headset. Okay,
yes,
we will just have to put up with it then. Okay, thank you. We will just put up with it.
Is it?
Actually, Chua, can you switch your microphone off?
Yes.
Just switch the talk button off for a minute.
Yes, correct. I have that.
So, and we'll just see if that stops the buzzing. Oh, it did. If you just switch on again,
sure.
We'll just see if it goes away. No. Okay, Chua, can you just stop talk again? And if you just go up to the,
sure.
I'm not sure, the tools, the audio setup wizard, just see if by going through that it might help. So would you just try that?
Yes,
I'm sorry, everybody. Sometimes we get feedback like that when there's no headset, but Chua has that. Okay, Chua, we will start up again. And if I might ask Steve if he's got any hints, but keep talking. And I'm sorry, folks, we can hear you over it. So go ahead, please.
Right. I hope the sound quality is better. It doesn't seem to be better, because I do have colleagues sitting around me who are tuning in. And maybe we'll change the headset and see whether that will improve the situation.
I think that would be good. Do you have another headset? So just simply swap it over And while you're doing that, I'll get some people. Do you have any questions that you would like to ask? If so, just key them in the chat. I'm finding this fascinating, and I love the idea of a school. I came in late, which I think is in Singapore, being involved in this. So does anyone have any questions? If so, we would love you to put them in the chat. And we do hope that Chua can get his headset going. So just let us know when you're back in. So go, are you right, Chua? Do you want to try again now? Oh, he's going through the audio setup wizard. So I'm Anne Merchant. I'm from Australia, southeastern Australia, so probably not so far from Singapore. Oh, great, Greg. So we've got some questions coming in. So when Chua is ready, we will get him to start up again. So if you look in the chat window, I might just stop the recording for a minute and I'll just get it going when he comes back on board. Go ahead.
I hope now the sound quality is better. Is it getting better?
Much better. Yes, much better. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. I know that there's a question that comes in asking about how the students actually apply to these schools. I would say that this school is fortunate in the sense that we can actually select students around the whole country. Anyway, this country is very small. We do not have, we basically run a school-based selection systems, and on a yearly basis, we do have about 1,500 students applying for 200 places. So we are quite fortunate over the last 3 years that since the school started, it has become a very, very popular school. And for those people who are familiar with the Singapore education system, most of our students actually would take a national examination at the end of their year 6 of their elementary schools, and they sit for this, based on this national examinations results, they would apply to a secondary schools based on that results. But the SST is a very different concept. We actually select the students based on their other talents and ability, and based on their track records, based on their school-based exams results, and they apply to us, and they were offered a place even before they take the national examination. And in this country, we call this a direct school admission exercise. And that has been a so-called great welcome, because it takes away the pressure from the students in taking a very high-stress national examination at the age of 12 years old. So we are in a way quite fortunate that we are able to so-called run the selection camp and run the selection activities to select students that would benefit the most from the kind of learning experience that we offer. And the other point that I want to add is that even though this is a school that charges a fees that are slightly higher than the regular schools, there are ample and I would even say plenty of support coming from the government as well as the schools as far as scholarships and bursaries are concerned. As long as the students earn a place in these schools, financial consideration should not be a consideration at all. Once a person is admitted into these schools, there are adequate, or I would say more than adequate financial support given to the students to have their education here and to be able to see them through their 4 years with SST. So if I may continue with my previous sharing, I think as I mentioned earlier on, we look at information communication technology as the vehicle, as the bus that actually can bring us from point A to point B, where we start off and bring us to our so-called destinations that we hope the students would arrive at. And I think we always see that ICT is the device, is the pathway, is the strategy, and not ICT as an end itself. And I think that's important for us to be very clear about the use of technology. And I think as far as the students are concerned, while we understand that most of the students are actually quite IT savvy, we cannot make the assumption that all students are at the same level of competencies with regard to the use of technology. So as far as the school is concerned, we do put in place a baseline ICT program and support structures to help them. And there will be a certain group of students who are very ICT savvy who really want to pursue technology field, for example, in the development of applications, apps, etc., in the big way, and that will be something that we develop them further. And we do have that program whereby we call it a talent development program. So these are students who are very into the use of technology in many creative ways, and we will provide the structures, the platforms, as well as the so-called support for them to develop their talent in that area. And I think one big part is with regards to use of technology, as we all know, is the part about cyber wellness. Technology is really a double-edged sword. It could be used for good learning outcomes, and likewise students could also get into some serious trouble if the technology is not used in the right way. So I think cyber wellness has been a big part of this school program, and we certainly believe also that we should involve the students to lead some of the sessions and to be able to influence their peers so as to make good use of the technology. And this is just a very simple illustrations of the kind of very simple tools that we use. And generally we use tools that are commonly available. As I mentioned, the basic philosophy. As I mentioned, the basic philosophy that we have really is that we want to make sure that learning is as seamless as possible, so that students do not see learning as so predefined within the four walls of the school building. And we use open tools such as Facebook, Twitter, Google Documents, Google Sites, etc., to actually let the students to be able to function this effectively, even if they leave the SST environment. Certainly, there are some challenges in using up all these common tools and commonly available tools, and that is something that we need to work very closely with the students, work very closely with the parents with regards to the cyber wellness. And obviously, I think in using these tools and the use of technology in the classrooms, teachers play a tremendous role, and it's certainly not an easy journey for the teachers to so-called teach in a whole new way within the SST environment. And that's why I say the professional development support is very critical, and that's an area that I'm going to touch on later on in my presentation. And the other part that I think we are very proud to offer here over in SST is that we firmly believe in talent development of our students. And on the slides here you can see that I have students actually be involved in a whole range of activities, even though they are supposedly very techy or geeky, as some of you might refer to. We actually want them to be able to expose a whole range of activities. So for example, all my grade 7 students, which means the very first year that they join us, they will have an opportunity to embark on this global citizenship program. So for every year, 200 of my students, they will have an opportunity to travel overseas, and they would travel to an ASEAN country. If not, they would travel to China. And we have different groups going out to different destinations with different partners that we have in the various countries, such as Brunei, Vietnam, Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam, Hanoi, Cambodia, and China. We want them to be involved in a whole range of activities. And some of this could be a service learning trip. Some could be better understandings of the Singapore operating context within the ASEAN environment. Some could be really about strengthening relationship between Singapore and Brunei. There's really a whole range of learning activities, and I think we want to start this at a very young age, so that students are able to experience firsthand that really they are not just a local Singapore citizens, but they are also a very important member of the global community. At the moment, my schools, we only have 3 grade level, grades 7, 8, and 9. And each grade level, there are 200 students. So at the moment, I'm having 600 students. And my next academic year will begin in January 2013. And that will give me another 200 students. And that will make a total of 800 students. And as far as Singapore is concerned, 800 students in one school is actually considered relatively small. Our typical secondary schools in Singapore would probably have about 1,400 students to about 1,500 students. And even in this global citizenship program, we have different levels of global citizenship program that we provide to our students. So on the slides, you would see that I have a group of students who actually has the opportunity to fly to US Space Camp at Alabama, and they participated in the Space Camp program. And even though we are science and tech, I do have a group of students who are very enthusiastic about singing, dancing, and they actually took part in our show choir competition and have done very, very well. And over time, I would say that we really do not want to expand the school too quickly. I think we are in no hurry to do so. We want to maintain a certain quality with regard to our teaching and learning. And I think to maintain quality, it also means that we need to maintain the quality in terms of the faculty staff that we have. And I think we want to take this at the pace that we are very comfortable. So come next year, when we have 800 students, that is probably the level that we are comfortable. Over time, we might increase our intake, and I would say the maximum capacity that we can reach as far as the physical infrastructure is concerned is probably about 1,200. So I think down here we have also included a website link whereby we will be able to showcase some of our students' work. Some are fairly elementary because those are kids who they just joined us for about a good 3 months or half a year, and they did some of the very interesting performance tasks and projects, and we'd like to share with our friends and fellow educators from all over the world. And I think Lucy Gray visited us, I think middle of this year. And I think we're very happy to meet Lucy, and that's how I was introduced into this global conference program. And let me touch on the next part, which I think is close to the heart of all of us as educators. I think professional development is definitely a very key piece that we focus a lot of our attention and effort in SST. We firmly believe that teachers are really the key to the whole learning experience in SST, and I would even say that the key to the learning experience in the whole education sector. And I think as far as SST is concerned, we are in a way fortunate again that we are able to recruit our own staff. We can actually have the opportunity to interview and select everyone that is interested to be part of the SST team. And I think as far as the recruitment process is concerned, what we are looking out for are teachers with very open mindsets and with a very firm belief that they can develop the students holistically. And I think during the interview, we'll do our level best. We do our level best to make sure that teachers have a passion for the kids, and also have a passion of their content knowledge. Because I think teachers who really have a passion for kids, they would actually go the way out to help and support the kids in many different ways. And when teachers have a passion for the knowledge, for the content subjects, they would be able to impart their love and their passions to the students. And I think both are very critical components that we look out for as far as our recruitment of teachers are concerned. We are less concerned about the teachers' ICT skills, even though this is a school of science and technology, because we believe that skill sets are things that whereby the teachers could be trained as long as they have an open mind, as long as they have a passion for the job, has a passion to work with the students, and we certainly believe that that kind of skill sets they can actually acquire over time, and we are not so worried about their technological skills. And I think having recruit so-called the right profile or the right so-called staff with the right motivations to join this team, the next important part of it is to provide the necessary professional development support. Okay, at the moment, I think there's a question that asks about whether all our staff are from Singapore. At the moment, I would say that probably about 97% of my staff are locals, and I only have a small percent of our staff who are foreigners. And even though these are staff who are foreigners, but they have actually worked in the Singapore school systems for a couple of years. And I think certainly we welcome applicants from overseas so as to strengthen our team, and we are also quite open to actually to consider so-called applications from any parts of the world, as long as they believe in the missions of the schools and they're able to adapt, as well as adapt to the Singapore education systems, as well as adapt to the SST learning environment. And we're more than happy to have any staff coming from any parts of the world. And I think as far as the approach to the staff professional development, we certainly want to look at the structures and platforms, and I think it's important to create the time and space, and it's important from a school planning point of view to be able to allocate the relevant resources and the support And certainly we take this at the various level. We look at the staff professional development at the individual level. We also look at the staff professional development at the department level, as well as we look at it at the school-wide level. And I think as far as the department, as far as the individual level, there will be opportunities for my colleagues to participate in conferences, study trips, to be able to share some of their research findings, especially based on their research project through the Future School program, and to be able to spread the practices either through attending some of the local conferences or even overseas conferences. And sometimes where it's too challenging for us to send our staff over due to some time constraints, due to time scheduling problems, we would actually invite so-called experts, especially Apple distinguished educators, to come by to provide in-house and customized, I would say to some extent, customized in-house training for my faculty staff. And when the Apple distinguished educators are in town, we will also restructure sometimes our timetabling, our schedule to meet the needs of the workshops that we actually need to put in place. So we are quite nimble and we are quite flexible because we firmly believe that the professional development support is important and is critical. And I would say at the staff level, they do have quite a fair bit of their own internal sharing, ad hoc sharing, or sometimes we call it the brown bag sessions, where people just gather around during lunchtime, share their food and share so-called 1 or 2 useful teaching strategies, especially with regards to the use of technology. So it's through all this approach, it's really through all this approach that we're trying to build a certain professional development culture. And I think it's important for us to focus on building that culture that emphasizes on strong so-called professionalism, very strong teamwork, strong support, mutual support from one another to help one another out. And I think not necessarily a case whereby a staff is senior in age doesn't mean that he or she would be handicapped because of technology use. There will be the slightly junior staff who will be able to help out. And likewise, the junior staff will benefit from the experience of the senior staff with regards to the development of curriculum content, assessments, approaches, materials. So I think that is something that we really want to create, to so-called create a very conducive as well as supportive culture that among the staff themselves, they can actually create the energy and to build out the enthusiasm so that they can actually bring the enthusiasms and the energy into the classrooms and to work alongside with the students. Okay, I think there are 2 questions coming in. One is really how different are the students here as compared to students in other mainstream schools? I would say that generally based on our selections approaches, I would say that the students here are a lot more vocal and they really enjoy hands-on activities. They really like to be engaged, and to some extent they are fairly social in the sense that they are very collaborative in their learning approaches. Whereas I would say that in the mainstream schools, due to probably the large class size, the opportunity for students to participate in those activities are probably significantly much lower as compared to what we have here in SST. So we do have a very lively group of students who are very enthusiastic. And certainly this brings about, I think, a fair share of challenges in the classrooms. So for teachers who are not very comfortable with students raising questions, with students asking a lot more, probing into the content knowledge of what needs to be done, what needs to be covered within that particular topics, some teachers may feel very uncomfortable. And some teachers who are so used to teaching in a mainstream school, where they have a full control over the classroom environment, will certainly find the SST learning environment very stressful. So down here, that's why I emphasize that we need to have teachers who are open-minded. We need to have teachers who are willing to try, who are willing to innovate, and who are willing to learn and work alongside with the students. And I really want to emphasize the point. It's really knowledge creation alongside with the students so that the whole learning and teaching processes can actually be co-created to make it even better. I think the second question is how then do we hold the staff accountable to the professional development or even accountable to their overall performance? I would say that this is something that is quite common in Singapore education systems. We do have a assessment framework, and assessment and appraiser framework, and the assessment and appraiser framework is fairly comprehensive. It covers the different aspects in terms of the teacher's work, in terms of their contribution, and we do have in place certain structures. Typically within the course of a year, the teachers would have an opportunity to meet up with their reporting officers, their supervisors, to have some discussions. In the first sessions, they would talk about the goals and targets that they want to achieve. And in the middle of the year, they would actually have the opportunity to discuss about the progress, get an update about where they are, and also to maybe express where is their desire in terms of the career development, etc. And the third one would actually be towards the end of the year, whereby the supervisors will have further discussions with the teachers in terms of have they met the targets and objectives that they want to achieve, etc. And I would say that some of these targets are not necessarily quantifiable, and I think as a schools, we focus a lot more on the evaluations of the teachers' professionalisms and efforts, and that is not directly, I would say, sometimes correlate with the students' outcomes in terms of test scores. While test scores is reflective of a certain level of achievement and certain level of performance, I don't think it's quite fair to say that the teachers has a 100% direct contribution to that test results. And I think there are a lot of factors surrounding affecting students' performance, especially on so-called pen and paper testing. And I think there's a need for us to be very aware about the efforts, the contributions of the teachers have given to the schools, to the department, to development of the kids, to the growth of the kids' potential. And I think there will be some of these very subjective elements that comes in. And the other thing that I might not have highlighted earlier on is that within the schools, we do have a ranking process. And in this ranking process, we actually gather all the department heads together with the vice principals, and we would discuss very objectively the contributions and performance of every single teachers. And those discussions about teachers is never just about the test scores. It's really about their teaching approaches, the way how they go about sharing their professional knowledge, how they support their colleagues within the departments, and how actively do they contribute towards the co-curricular activities, the sport and games of the students, etc. So there are many facets of the teacher's work that we look at it, not just on the individual basis, we look at it across the whole year, and there's a whole panel of so-called supervisors that will talk about it, and from there we appraise and give our best possible judgments with regards to the teacher's contribution to the schools. Yes, certainly. I think as far as learning is concerned, we do try to use multiple modes of assessments, and that is why within the school environment, I think there are many different modes of assessments that we actually give it out to the students. But having said that, I think in Singapore and likewise in many parts of the world, we still face with this big challenge of how to move away from a very conventional high-stake testing that is still very, very much based on pen and paper. And I would say in this country, our national examination is still within a very traditional format. And I think there's a lot of discussions also within this country to see how best can we evolve our assessment systems and how best can we move away from that. So I would say that as far as the national examination is concerned, it's still fairly traditional, it's still fairly pen and paper, but within the internal school-based assessments, as far as the ongoing, either we call it the formative or the summative assessments, the schools is doing their level best to introduce different mode of assessments. And I think that is critical, and that is really something that's relevant as far as the kids is concerned when they move on to be part of the 21st century workforce. And I think that's something that the schools is paying quite a bit of attention to, as well as trying to prepare the kids well for a traditional pen and paper test. Okay, for the global citizenship program, actually what we have is that we have actually structured two different durations, and one happening in late May and the other one is happening in late October. And this actually happened during the curriculum time. And typically we use the last week of our term just before the holiday break. And in this case here, we actually have, as I mentioned, the 200 students, every single one of them would have an opportunity to go. The only difference is that we select students based on different objectives. For example, I have a group of students that will be selected to go to China, and in order for the students to benefit fully from that experience, they would need to have a certain command and mastery of a Chinese language. So the selection of the students would need to fit that particular objective in terms of the learning activities. And for other kind of trips, there will be trips whereby there is service learning approach, and they will be suited to a certain group of students. And so we do that kind of selection to some extent. And the reason why we do that selection is partly also because this is a very heavily subsidized trip by the schools. As far as the school is concerned, we are fortunate to be able to subsidize close to about 50% of the trip expenses, and the other 50% would just need to be paid for by the parents. And we are able to do so partly because we are fortunate to have this donation from a philanthropic organization in Singapore that believes very firmly in our philosophy and has given us a good sum of resources to be deployed for such purposes. So I think down here on my slides here, actually, I just captured some of the comments coming from our students. And I think listening from our students is very critical to let us have some sense about the learning activities that is going on. And I think as far as the principals as well as the vice principals are concerned, we do hold regular focus group discussions with the students. And I think through this focus group discussions, we really want to hear firsthand from the students, how do they find their learning experience, and whether are there areas that, as far as the school management is concerned, whether we can make it better, and how can we enhance it and make it more so-called enriching. And I don't think we are doing this as a way to check on the teachers. I think we are doing this very much more to provide us as another added source of information and feedback, so that we can work alongside with the own faculty staff to see how best can we enhance and make changes to our programs, to our activities. And I think hearing from the kids is a very wonderful experience, because the kids will actually share very candidly the good points as well as the not so good points. And I think certainly we feel very assured of the good practices that we have actually put in place, and certainly we feel that maybe some of the other areas that we have not done well, we can bring those feedbacks back to our faculty staff and to be able to discuss this on a very professional front to see how best can we enhance and make changes and make improvements.
Chua, thank you so much for this wonderful presentation. Sure. Our buzzing sound is returning again, although it might have gone now. We still have about 3 minutes. If there are any other people who would like to ask a question, please put it in the chat. I find the concept of your school fascinating, and I'm sure it will be a very popular school to be able to get into. I could imagine there would be many teachers wishing to teach in this wonderful environment that you're creating. So do we have any last few questions? If so, please just put them in the chat. So Chua, if you just switch your talk button off for a minute again, it would,
I'll do that.
I don't know if the people around you have a headset on or their computer's just open. I don't know what's causing it. But anyway, it looks like there aren't any other questions, but thank you for sharing your website, your Facebook address. I hope you keep us informed of how things pan out for you. So let's give Chua a round of applause, people. So you can see there's a clapping hand up near the smiley face. And we thank you very much for this very, very interesting presentation.
Thank you very much, Anne. Thanks for your time, and thanks to everyone for listening in, and hope to see you here in Singapore.
Thank you. We'd love to come to Singapore. So we thank you, everybody. We hope you'll go to many more sessions of our Global Education Conference. I've been to some wonderful ones already. So please keep your eye on the schedule and join in where you can. I will stop the recording now, and thank you once again, Chua, and everyone for coming.
Right. Thank you very